Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation's LNTV. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. Today we're going to be discussing lockdown informers, and to help us with this is Legal Affairs Editor Mr. Scott DiCosenza. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Mark.
So, Scott, if you're calling in to report unauthorized barbering, just know that your complaint may become public knowledge and revealed to those that you've sicked the state on. Scott, tell us what's happening.
Well, that's right, Mark. We've now seen with so many different states and cities offering up these snitch lines, for lack of a better term, to report behavior that may violate a closure order in the COVID-19 sort of crisis wake. Well, many states have provisions whereby those types of things are subject to public records requests. This is a state-by-state issue. There's not one federal rule that covers everyone. That would be under the FOIA requests, but each state often has their own type of open records law, and these complaints are being now often revealed for who's making them.
So this means that they will be publicly revealed at some point, or could be publicly revealed if somebody chooses to pursue. Is that correct?
We already see some of them being publicly revealed, Mark. That's what's prompting sort of now a backlash against the public revelation of those complaints.
Are there any reports of violence against the informers?
Well, we don't have any yet. I suspect that given the breadth of the complaint lines and the reaction of some Americans, we will see perhaps some in the future, but none yet, just fears of that from people who have had their complaints be revealed.
Okay, so Scott, what should the response be on this from a legal angle?
Well, certainly I think it's probably not a good idea to be violent against somebody who's made a complaint, because those acts will certainly be followed up on by the state. But I think, Mark, I would say a proper shunning. The Amish give us a great path forward here. If you think that ratting your neighbor out for not being in compliance with the governor's order, which may or may not be constitutional, the appropriate thing is just to withdraw from interaction, I think, with those parties, whether it's the neighborhood shopkeeper saying, no, thank you, you can keep your custom, or by saying to the kids, maybe don't go over to so-and-so's house to play. But that seems to be at least what we can do to distance ourselves from people who think it's okay to send men with guns after somebody for, playing in a park, for instance.
It's truly worrying how, in terms of liberty, that people are so ready to set the state against people who are friends and neighbors. Do you think this is just a reaction to fear, or is it something that's with the COVID-19 crisis, or is it something that just bubbles under the surface at all times?
Well, I appreciate that question. I think it's a little bit of both. I'm happy to report that many attempts at creating these tip lines have been met with a deluge of pictures of human anatomy, for instance, and other well wishes sent to the to the people cultivating these sorts of tips. But there is a certain percentage of the population, Mark, that seems to crave the leash and the collar, and for them it's warm comfort to be able to report on their neighbors. But fortunately, it seems like those are a small minority of the population.
Yeah, in the UK, we have similar helplines set up for the public to report on those walking in the parks, or maybe taking their dogs out for 2 walks a day. And it's quite troubling that that there are people who actively seem to want to engage in this kind of system of diminishing our liberties. Scott, I'll give you the final word.
Mark, snitching and informing are inherently the practices of totalitarian states. And the more we get into that, the more we can expect to see that sort of behavior coming from the state and the resistance from the people. States should rely on voluntary compliance and open reporting of non-compliance, if in fact that's what we require.
Scott, thank you very much. And thank you to you at home for watching.